Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. And every few days, we bring in either I do it or better, we bring in a friend from the business world, usually, or organizational life to give us perspective on a dilemma people have. And usually, we kind of divide into some of the things are for startup people because we do a bunch of startup stuff, and some of them are more for like general work. In this case, we have a rare crossover. So I'm really grateful that we have Mallun Yen with us. Mallun started and is the CEO of Operator Collective, which is a fund that is also a community that brings together some of the best operators in the technology industry to support new founders, support not just new, but support founders and help them to thrive. And Mallun, if I got that wrong, long history at RPX, a successful technology company, and you can correct, and helped create SaaStr and all kinds of other institutions here in the tech industry. So Mallun, thank you. And the question today is, you are now seen, and I think for good reason, as somebody who has expertise in how to lead people. Many people struggle with that first moment where it's like, oh, I have a team for the first time. Even I'm managing an intern for the first time. So if I'm new to managing people, what do I need to know?
Well, first of all, Roy, thank you for having me. I love your little snippet. So it's an honor to be here. And I appreciate all you guys' support on Operator Collective. So oftentimes when you're a new manager, you might have been promoted out of a group of people, which is what happened to me the first time I managed people. I had a bunch of peers and I was one of the many, and then I was promoted to the
Yeah.
position. And so for me, I it wasn't like I was hired into that position and I came in as people's bosses, right? I came in saying, okay. And then because I tend to be a non-hierarchical person, I'm like, I don't want to act any different. Now that
Totally.
I'm the boss, I can still be normal and a friend. I don't think I'm all above you guys now.
Thursday
And
night, time
so,
for drinks.
yeah. And so that's kind of how I tried to act, which was actually what you realize is being a manager is different. You can still be, you can still care about the whole person. You can still care about, what brings them to work, what are their motivations. But the fact is it is different because
What
it's
do you
not like
think
you're their
makes that
peer.
difference? I mean, for me, it's that you have power over them that you didn't have before, ability to, but what do you think makes that difference?
So, I think there's a number of things. Is one, you do have the power, right? You are managing them, and you're also responsible for the development, the feedback
Yeah.
you give them, the path that you pave for them is different. And so, one example I'll give is when I really thought like I'm just like everyone else, right? Just because I'm managing now, it doesn't mean I'm going to treat
Yeah,
anyone any
sure.
differently. And so, this one time, literally, I think I just gotten promoted and everyone was on this email string, like everyone is. And someone said something and people were all making jokes. And so I jump in and I write I type in my joke and I think I'm pretty dry and funny. And like 2 seconds later, literally, like my boss comes running like down the hall into my office, opens the door without even knocking, and says, "Stop it!" Like
Oh
I
my
was like,
goodness.
"What?" And he said, "You can't do that anymore." I was like, "What did I do?" And he said, "You are no longer their peer. You cannot joke like that. It's not funny." I
Yeah.
actually thought it was funny, but it's not funny because when you say it and you think it's just an offhand comment, it has a deeper impact than if you were just another
The
peer
words
again.
land. And also, there's also the thing of then they start laughing because you're their boss.
Yeah, and you're not really funny. So,
Right.
I was funny. I think it probably wasn't that funny.
Don't we
And the
all?
fact is it was true.
Yeah.
Is that you are their boss and there is a difference. Again, it doesn't mean you can't have like a wonderful, rich,
Sure.
personal caring relationships, but know that you are no longer, you know,
Well, I think
above them.
especially in a modern workplace, we bundle so many relationships in the manager relationship. It's assigning people work, giving them feedback, rating their work, coaching them on their career, setting their pay. I mean, there's all these interrelationships bundled into that. And so, okay, so that's what's not to do. How about if you think to yourself, what do I do now, and don't know what to do? What are some of the things that you should do?
Okay, so it used to be very hard for me to give direct, candid feedback, especially in the moment,
Yeah.
because certainly you're thinking it. And again, I think it took me time to get comfortable with being a manager. But the fact is that that direct, like feedback in the moment is incredibly valuable. So one, and you can do it in a way that's said with love. So, and especially because they know that you're caring about them as the whole person. And I'll give you an example of a lesson, a very painful one that I got from a phenomenal manager that I had. His name is actually Dan Scheinman. He's actually now been a longtime mentor and
Angel
part of the
investor
fund.
in
And
Zoom and many successful companies, board member at Zoom. I mean, active on the
brilliant.
Twitter.
Yes, yes. We could. I mean, yeah. I mean, keep going on because you couldn't. And then there's like just a wonderful, amazing human being, an incredible manager with super high EQ. Learned a ton from him. And so one time, I was invited to go to this very big deal thing at Cisco, and I sat there and I was a little bit caught off guard because I wasn't prepared for it because they just told me to show up. And then so when they said you need to go talk, and so I went up there and I started blabbing like an idiot. Those times when you talk and like your mouth is moving and you're like, I need to stop
What
talking.
did I just
It's not
say?
making
Yeah.
any sense. Yeah. And then I stopped talking and I'm like, okay, maybe nobody noticed that I said things that were unintelligible because everyone sort of looked and then moved on. Later, Dan, my manager, comes in and says, he sees me from across the lunchroom and was like, chases me basically because I'm trying to run away from him saying if no one knows anyway. But what he did is like, he started with like, let's talk about what just happened there. And I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And what he said is, look, you are such an A player. You're so great at what you do, but today, not so much, right? And that lesson, something that was incredibly painful for me because I know I was horrible and I just didn't want to face it. But saying it with such care really made a difference. And I said, I know I was horrible. It was like an F
Yeah.
today. What do I do? And it really, we had a very candid conversation about like, here's what I did, right? In situations like this, here's what I learned. And so giving that painful feedback that even they don't want to hear in the moment, you can do it in a way, and especially because probably if you're listening to this, you are the kind of person who is a very conscientious manager, that
True.
that it can be done in a way that's incredibly positive and not sort of devastating to the person.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I mean, the skill to be able to deliver truth kindly is something I'm still working on to do better at the truth part. And, the way that you described him doing it with an experience he had, also really powerful. And that's it. It's like the beginning of it is feedback. Your job is not to command and control and tell the person what to do. Not necessarily. In some workplaces it can be. But I love that. Those are really great ways to get started. Thank you, Mallun, for that. Anything you want to add before we wrap?
The only other thing is you are only as good as your team, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good or effective you are if you don't have the team. If you don't have two people who can step into your position when you leave, then you haven't done your job as a leader.
Fortunately, I have two equal partners in Bloomberg Beta. So while I hope to sit in this seat for a long time, and as you know, James and Karen, not to mention the rest of the team, really do carry a lot of the weight. I love that. Thank you, Mallun. And for folks who have questions, we take them on Twitter or wherever. And if you want to see past episodes, we transcribe and edit them and link out to other resources at thisisnotadvice.work. The reason we call it This Is Not Advice is we're not trying to tell you what you should do. You have to make your own choices. We're just offering our own experiences. So thank you, Mallun, and to be continued.
Thank you so much, Roy. And I love your partners too. You have an amazing team at Bloomberg Beta.